Good evening and welcome to Explorers, Seekers of the Truth. Tonight is episode, I don't even remember anymore, 13?
It is episode 12.
12, 13?
12.
Okay.
No, you're right. It is lucky number 13.
Yeah.
I think. I don't even remember, to be honest with you.
Yeah, honestly, at this point, I think it's just kind of, it's a number, whatever one it is. We enjoy doing these. Right. So, so tonight we're going to discuss something, kind of, it's going to be a broad topic discussion. Of course, tonight I'm as always joined by my best friend co-host, Wes Sienkiewicz. How are you doing tonight, Les?
Brother from another mother, if you will. Yes, I'm doing really good tonight, buddy, and I hope you're doing the same. We're coming up on the holiday season. Christmas season is always crazy, always hectic, and as part of that, even with the show, it's really hard to try and get things going with the show and whatnot. But we're trying our best to keep everything rolling for you guys. I don't know, anybody out there that has kids should know how crazy the holidays get, and I'm beyond fried. So I'm hoping that the show goes well tonight, and we have a really good topic that Chad is going to be talking about. But before we get into the topic, in light of the holiday season, I'm going to give us a nice little festive border on our. Oh, there we go. There's a nice little festive display on our show screen there. And as always, I like to go through and just let everybody know kind of how to get in touch with us. You could visit us at our website, which is it showing? Not showing? Showing?
No, I don't see it.
No? What? No,
nope.
Why the heck is it not showing? Sure. Okay. At our Facebook page, facebook.com/ Xplorers, which is, everybody's watching us there tonight. You can check us out at Facebook, PM us, whatever you need to do to get in touch. You could also visit us at our website. And why the heck is that not showing? Here we go. Our website is www.explorersgroup.com. There you can see some of our archive shows, and as we had explained on one of our Facebook posts before, we're going to let current shows sit for like maybe a 2-3 week span, and then we're going to take them off of Facebook, and we're going to archive them on our website as well as our YouTube channel. And again, you can link when you click on one of the videos on our website, it'll automatically take you to our YouTube channel. So you could go there, subscribe, like, do all whatever it is you do on YouTube. I can't give you the link to YouTube because it's just a bunch of characters. We didn't formalize it, I guess, if you will. But you could get there through our Facebook page, explorersgroup.com. Another way you could get in touch with us is on Twitter, @ExplorersGroup is our handle. So like I said, visit any one of those media outlets and let us know your thoughts. If you yourself are having a either paranormal experience or you were witness to any kind of cryptozoological creature or whatever, and you need to talk about it, we'll keep everything 100% confidential. As long as it's within reason, we could come to your location and investigate and do some research to try and help you out and try and justify your experience. So reach out to us on any one of those media outlets, and we'll be happy to help. So with that, I give it back to my co-host, Chad Charlesworth.
Yeah. Before we get into the topic of this evening's discussion, I would just love to bring up this recent government UFO project where, it's been on the news the last couple of weeks where an F-18 followed a UFO, and the U.S. government has spent $22 million on this project since like 2012. And the media is acting like this has never happened before. If you go back to the late 40s, 50s, you have between Project Grudge and Project Blue Book, you have the original version of this program, to deal with aerial phenomenon and whatnot. And, so don't be surprised that these projects are still going on. I watched a thing on CBS, NBC, it was, and they were, I can't believe we're doing this, the real life X-Files and this, that, and the other thing. And this is, nobody could believe this. Well, if you go to Google and type in Project Blue Book, it gives you the declassified government information, the synopsis of all the cases. This has been going on for years. It's something that I guess the media tries to hype it up, especially with the return of X-Files and stuff like that coming, in January. They kind of, I guess, used it as a big, segue marketing thing. But, just understand that those programs are out there. They've been out there. It's not anything revolutionary or new. It's been going on since the 1940s.
Yep.
And, so to kind of get into our topic for this evening, I was at a library and I found this really interesting book. And I guess I basically have been, every other text message or phone call with Les has been me discussing this book with him, just telling him about it. So we were going to do another show for this evening, but the guest that we were trying to line up, wasn't available. So we decided to kind of talk about this book. And the book is called Paranormal America. I'm going to hold the copy up right here. Probably got a horrible glare on it because of my light in this room.
No, don't look too bad.
Yeah. And it's Christopher D. Bader, F. Carson Menke, and Joseph O. Baker. They're all professors. Bader's an associate professor of sociology at Baylor. Menchek is a professor of sociology at Baylor, and O. Baker, assistant professor of sociology at East Tennessee State. And basically what this book comes from is the 2005 and 2007 Baylor Sociology Department's survey on, I think it was a survey on divinity or something like that, religious studies. Baylor, they basically title it the Baylor Religious Survey Waves 1 and 2. So, I thought it was quite interesting because it puts a face, a statistic with belief systems, and it also kind of identifies some of the more common beliefs between the sexes and race and stuff like that. So I figure we'll talk about that a little bit tonight. Excuse me. I am a little under the weather, folks, so I may be hacking a lot tonight. I hope that doesn't, drive you away, but it does. It is a bad thing. I've been sucking cough drops for the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. There's been so many colds going around, especially with the kids at school and everything. It's unbelievable. And for whatever reason, this year especially, the illnesses just seem to be 20 times stronger than normal. So I feel your pain. I just got over a cold that hung on for a month, a week ago, and I'm finally starting to feel better. So I know how you feel.
This thing, it's been 2 weeks ongoing, and I still have not gotten the cold.
Right. It's like that hanger, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The calm before the storm, and then when it hits.
Yeah. So, like I was saying, with this research, it's a very interesting thing because they even kind of broke it down on between male and female. So one of the things they did was gender and what the more common beliefs are between the genders. So a female is more likely to believe in New Age, psychic, fortune-telling, mediums, and astrology. Mm-hmm. Where males are more likely to believe in the prophecies of Nostradamus, Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, etc., UFO sightings, abductions, and conspiracy theories. Mm-hmm. And so when you think about that, it kind of shows a difference between men and women's thought processes, or thought process as to do with belief systems. Men are looking at more concrete type things like monsters, like Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster. They're looking at more or looking for more of the physical, hunter end of things, where women are looking more into the new age. They say new age, and when I think new age, I think psychics, fortune tellers, and mediums kind of all fit that, but they kind of break it, and even astrology, to me, is all kind of interconnected with that same theory of like new age thought and stuff like that, which definitely does, like I said, it shows a difference between thought processes. And this is not saying that there are no women that believe in Bigfoot, or there are no men who believe in astrology. It's just saying it's showing out of the people surveyed where the majority of belief fell.
Mm-hmm.
So to kind of get a little bit deeper into that, when it comes to like astrology, you're going to see, and actually the next couple of stats I give, you're going to kind of see the same one thing in particular that pops up on all of them.
Mm-hmm.
With astrology, they're usually lower income, younger, married, non-literalist, non-white, and female.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you go to, say, ghost, lower income, younger, there's a lot of monsters. It's more male, lower income, and younger. So a lot of this is falling to lower income and younger people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, being a survey, if they did a survey, on a correct level, they should have sent it out to an equal, a diverse number of, incomes, age, and stuff like that. But, there's certain like attributes that are kind of showing up as you go through all this. So I'm switching notebooks here. So let's see. Let's get to the basic question that, you and I and pretty much everybody that does paranormal investigations. Do ghosts exist?
Mm-hmm.
20? Yeah.
That is the biggest question of all.
Yeah. Well, now out of these people surveyed, 20% said absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
28% said probably. Then
now, can I interrupt you for 1 second? How do you, and I don't know if you know this, or maybe you said it already and I just didn't hear you. How many people are being surveyed?
Their original survey was over 2,000 people.
Okay.
Let me see. I'm just checking real quick to see if they actually give their number. I looked it up on Google Scholar, and it had, I believe, I think they surveyed 2,000. They had over 1,700 responses.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you're already looking at about 49% are saying probably to absolutely exist.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go and you're about 51% that say probably not to absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Baylor Religious Survey, Waves 1 and 2. From 2005, 2007, the information was collected. It's found in Paranormal America, the book. I was just answering Sean's question. I'm sorry. I was self-indulging there for a moment. But now, just think about, the people we've talked to over the years, that aren't necessarily involved in investigations and stuff like that. You figure 51% pretty much don't feel it's probable, that the existence of ghosts isn't necessarily a definite. or that they even believe on that level.
Mm-hmm.
So, you look at that, but, think about how many people you talk to who are like, oh, yeah. And then all of a sudden they're like, hey, did I ever tell you this story about the time I saw, something in my closet?
Mm-hmm.
Out of that, in this survey, how many people are answering honestly, who are being, because one of the things with people, my wife handles a lot of surveys and stuff like that with her job is, even if it's anonymous, people always feel like their answers give away who they are.
Yeah. It's got to be a subconscious thing where you think you're going to be found out.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, what do you think about when you hear 51% don't necessarily believe in ghosts or feel it's not probable?
Well, I don't necessarily look at that as a negative thing. I mean, it's still pretty much half of the man, that echo is driving me nuts. It's still pretty much half and half with your test subjects, if you will. Mm-hmm. So, and 51%, even though it is a little bit over the line of non-believers, I wouldn't say that they don't believe. Now, you said they that it's not probable. I still think that they might, they may want to believe, or they're just waiting for that concrete proof or evidence. You know what I mean? So I'd say most of them may be interested or have, a slight inkling that it might be real, but I think that they're just more or less waiting for that concrete proof. Or some of them are just too afraid to admit how they really feel and don't want to be judged.
Yeah.
So you could probably say out of that 51% that maybe it's really only 30 or 40% non-believers, and that other 10, 15, 16% are just afraid or skeptics.
Well, one of the things I find a flaw with that question, because they don't give you an undecided. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, like through a lot of the rest of their surveys, their survey questions, mm-hmm. they give you an undecided. So there is a middle ground to a lot of stuff. And, there are people that probably fell on either side of the line who probably would have been more in the undecided, category, mm-hmm. who aren't necessarily 100%, oh, yes or no.
Right.
And that's the whole thing. So you have that question especially kind of bothers me because it doesn't give you a middle ground. Mm-hmm. One of the things, though, when you give middle ground is a lot of people don't commit to an answer. Mm-hmm. So you would have a larger middle ground than necessarily a yes or no, positive or negative. But now you go to another question on this survey. Is it possible to communicate with the dead? 3% strongly agree with it is possible.
Okay.
17.7% feel it's agree it's possible. So you go from strongly agree is 3%, 17.7 agree with that it is possible. So you're at about 20% already that are saying yes or strongly agree yes. Mm-hmm. 18.5% are undecided on that question. 29% disagree with the question, disagree with the possibility. 31.1% strongly disagree. Mm-hmm. So you're already looking at communication. Now you went from belief in existence to communication.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You're already at 60% basically that are saying that it's not possible to communicate.
Again, there's multiple means of communicating with the afterlife. You have mm-hmm. seances, you have Ouija boards, you have spiritual writing, just to name a few. Again, you're getting back into that whole realm of, you need the concrete proof. How legitimate is that? So I would probably find myself on the 67% side of not really believing. I mean, part of what we do when we investigate and we go out to, residentials, pay-to-plays, whatever you want to, we go out there to find that concrete evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And through personal experience, it's impossible. It's so hard to get that. And again, there's a lot of people out there that, may get an EVP, and to them it's like $1 million EVP. It's the greatest thing in the world, and you can't convince them otherwise. We all know people like that. I'm very much on the skeptic side where, okay, I have something, I can't explain it, I've ruled out all my options. However, it's still too subjective for me to say that I've made contact or I've communicated with the other side. So I would probably be on the 67% side as a skeptic, because I have yet to get that concrete evidence. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. I just find, the numbers seem very interesting when you go to the, between existence and communication. And again, too, it's a leading question. You could, is it possible to communicate?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not sitting down having a cup of coffee with Abraham Lincoln, communicating with Abraham Lincoln's ghost.
Right,
so therefore, no, communication isn't, a possibility. But, I mean, you start to think about some of it, and, I think sometimes the questions become, kind of skewed in a certain way that you can use that to draw a conclusion,
Mm-hmm.
But, it's an interesting, point when you start looking at the numbers.
Right.
So you want to take a guess on how many people absolutely believe extraterrestrials exist?
Percentage-wise?
Yeah. Yeah, not actual numbers.
I just got to ask the audience, is anybody else hearing an echo when I talk? If you could write in the comments section just yes or no, because it is driving me freaking crazy. And I don't know if it's anything with my PA system or anything, or my mixer. I don't know. But anyways, percentage of believers of extraterrestrials. I would probably say that the number of believers in extraterrestrials, okay, you can hear an echo. All right, well, I don't know what the frick is going on. You know what? Can up. Damn it! I thought I fixed it. I don't know. You know what? Sorry, everybody. We're just gonna have to bear with it for right now. I don't know what's going on. I'll have to look into it over the next week before our next show. I apologize for that, but it's driving me nuts. I would say that there'd be a higher number of believers in extraterrestrials than there are of the paranormal. It's a ghost. I would say 75% believe, 25% don't.
No, actually, you're looking at about 47% believe, and again, about 53% non-belief.
Wow. No,
Yeah.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, it's
Just to answer Ron's question there. Yeah, I don't. I only have the one window. I only have the interface of the B Live is the host that we have to do our show, and I only have that interface opened. I'm running through a small mixer and a dynamic mic, as you can see in front of me, and I don't have any speakers or mics turned on my laptop, so I don't know why I'm getting this echo. It's an anomaly, but anywho, I don't hear it now, so hopefully it's not doing it for you guys at the moment. It seems to be off and on, so just bear with us. I apologize again if it's annoying everybody. So, anyways, back to the extraterrestrials and the percentages. I find it weird that it is opposite of what I said, just because I think the universe as a whole is infinite. Therefore, there's no beginning, there's no end. It just goes on and on and on. And I was just watching a program of just our galaxy and its relation to the universe itself. It's so freaking vast. There is absolutely no way you could say that our tiny little planet in this vast black nothingness, you cannot say that we are the only planet that holds life. I definitely think that there has got to be another species, race, whatever you want to call it. There's got to be other life out there that is far superior to our own. I mean, if we're as advanced as we are, there's got to be something else out there. Charlie's got a good point there that they exist, but they don't visit us. I think it's possible that, another species from another planet, another, beings from another, I think they could make it here if they really wanted to. I mean, we have the capacity of getting out of our our atmosphere, if you will, and venture to different areas of or soon to be venturing to other areas of our solar system. I mean, we've made it to Mars with robotics and whatnot. There's a thing that's what the hell is it? A satellite that's going to be going into the sun. I saw recently a program about that, and it's supposedly going to get the best footage of the sun that we've ever had. We have satellites and stuff going out to Saturn and Jupiter and some of the further. Hold on. That's been probed many times. Right. The planet I meant.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's got to be other life out there, and yes, I mean obviously there's got to be life that are contained within planets, but I do think that there's got to be some other forms out there that have the capacity or ability to venture beyond their planet and venture through the universe. I mean, if we're getting to that point, there's older galaxies out there than our own, and something has got to have been able to get to a point beyond where we are at. So
yeah, well, I think
that's just my 2 cents.
I think one of the things there is we know microbial life lives in space on other planets. Technically, that is extraterrestrial.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the definition of extraterrestrial. So I don't, I've never been super big on UFOs. Like, it's never been something I've really studied or researched. Mm-hmm. I think it's, some of the more famous crashes, like we were talking earlier about, like Kecksburg, PA, Roswell, some of the more famous things out there are interesting. it does not necessarily mean that they're extraterrestrial. Some of those things could have been, we were talking about the Glocken, the Nazi bell, which seems awfully similar to what people described in Kecksburg, and so not everything there necessarily is extraterrestrial. As far as extraterrestrials visiting us, I am more of the belief with what people claim with abductions and stuff like cattle mutilation and stuff like that. I'm more of the belief of that's actually humans from the future, time travel, compared to extraterrestrial.
Right.
Due to space travel and stuff like that, we would, definitely lose some of the bacteria in our body and stuff like that. And if you ever look, they're always probing certain body parts, anally, orally. If they're probing those areas, what are they looking for? Bacteria.
They're harvesting, yeah.
Yeah. So if humans, in the future lost, due to space travel, have lost certain bacteria, because, our body is basically a planet for bacteria.
Right.
Our stomach and stuff like that, and all the way through our bowel ducts and all that is basically an ecosystem for bacteria. Right. So if in the future these humans have lost certain, bacteria, it's already been proven that extended time in space causes muscle deterioration, bone density issues, and stuff like that. They've done these studies with the space station and stuff like that.
Right.
So now if you have several generations of humans who have been doing, have spent their entire life in space, they don't need to be 6'250" to live in space. They can start, downsizing basically. Their bodies would, eventually not need all that mass. So all of a sudden now you have the little gray aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Their heads are maybe the same size as our head is now, but their body has shrunk down so their heads look bigger. Mm-hmm. Their eyes have changed because they're not dealing with the light that we deal with. They're dealing with different, man-made lights or something like that, or cosmic, issues and radiation and stuff like that have changed their eye structure. That's actually a good point there. Like bases here on Earth. There are a lot of cultures. Well,
I was going to say Antarctica is. Well, were you going to go on to that?
No. Actually, it's part of it. But no, you go ahead.
I was just going to say that Antarctica has a history of theories that there's a huge alien population that live under the ice, and they've been there for millions of years, and they've interacted with modern humans, supposedly back in the what was, I guess, the 40s, when the military started setting up bases and camps down there. And I want to say that the Germans or the Russians were down there and communicating with these beings and whatnot. And I guess these beings have been on Earth for a long, long time. I don't know if they can't get out or what, but supposedly they've been down in Antarctica for a long time. I mean, that's one of the topics I've been seeing coming around a lot. And I have a theory on extraterrestrials as well, kind of in part with like what you've been saying. But you remember, well, maybe I won't say his name, but it was a science teacher that we had in middle school, our 8th grade science teacher. He had a theory on extraterrestrials and what they could be. And when I heard him say it, I subscribed 100% to it. I thought it made absolute sense. Basically, it's along the same. Yes. It's along the same lines as what you're saying. Is they're not beings from another planet. I need to step up my beard game. I used to have a beard like that. I had to trim it down due to business reasons, but yeah, I know. But anyway, the teacher that I had talked about aliens are not from another planet. They are futuristic human beings in the sense that as you see even now how things are progressing, there's not a lot of need. Well, we press a lot of buttons. Everything is just touching buttons, pushing buttons, touching screens. So you have the elongated fingers, the thin fingers. So and then some of the appendages start to disappear, like a lot of like the grays, if you will, have like 3 fingers, 3 or 4, maybe one small appendage. It's almost de-evolving, if you will. The brains are the heads are going to get bigger because throughout human history, if you follow the lineage back, our skull sizes have increased due to our brain mass has increased. Once we get to that point where we're able to travel through time or space or whatever, I think it's just going to get to a point. I think what we're killing our planet now, and that's obvious. We're going to need to get out of here and maybe not travel to other planets per se, but maybe have space stations or ships or whatever that are going to be our new homes. We have to figure out how to travel back in time to harvest things to stay alive in the future. So you look at the physical body of these creatures, the gray skin tones. I mean, there's no pigmentation. It's just kind of, when you're out in space, everybody kind of bred together, so you become one common color. You don't have really any pigmentation that's necessary because you don't have the sun.
I was going to say I was going to say you don't need the pigmentation, the melanin, and stuff like that because of you're not dealing with sun. Yeah.
And if so you think about most of the encounters that you have extraterrestrial wise are at night, they're probably very light sensitive. The big black oval eyes, that's pretty much a given. I mean, it's black absorbs light, so you have these huge black eyes that are absorbing any and every speck of light that you could find, especially out in outer space. Like Chad said, you're inside of a ship. You're probably accustomed to artificial light. You're not going to have a source like the sun that's going to be giving you continuous light. And then the body. I mean, some descriptions of aliens vary. Some of them are teeny tiny. Some of them are really super tall. So you're in outer space. You don't have a gravitational pull pulling down on your body anymore. So you're in, the lack of gravity could allow you to grow, your limbs to extend, your bodies to extend. Maybe your core doesn't grow that much, but your limbs stretch out more. And that could even explain with the heads being kind of like a reverse pear, if you will. You know what I mean? The brain just grows and grows. You don't have that density. I would imagine that they're probably more rubbery than they are dense like we are.
Yeah.
And to your point, they're gonna come back to get the things that they devolved over time.
Yeah. That's when I sit down and think of it, I think more along those lines of like when you look at the common denominator in abductions or cattle mutilations, it's facial, it's rectal, it's internal organs being removed. They're harvesting it for something, a healthy bacteria culture or something along those lines. One of the things like we were talking about, like Antarctica, is even, multiple cultures have alien lizard people, different descriptions of said alien type people that are in their ancestral history. The Zulu have, lizard people that lived underground who were shapeshifters who could take the form of humans. Shaka Zulu's, in the legend, Shaka Zulu's wife was actually a lizard person in disguise, and he ended up killing her and, started a war with her people from that,
Right.
So there is a lot of, legendary basis in story and folklore for aliens being here along with us.
Right.
Not necessarily, it might be at the point where they, I was almost going to talk like this is 100% certain fact, but just to the fact of if they've been here longer than us, they may feel this is their home too.
True.
You know what I mean? Like they live subterranean, but they feel like this planet is their home too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we live with, birds. We don't look at the birds and go, this is our planet, fly away. The birds look at it like, they throw out trash. We eat their trash. Sometimes they throw food out. Sometimes when they die, we get to pick at them and we get food from that.
Right. We coexist.
Yeah. So now.
Well, here's a thought, not to interrupt, but
yeah.
What if we are more or less an interbred branch from that? Like say these extraterrestrials came to Earth. They saw like when humans were in their infant stages of evolution. Perhaps they bred with us, and that because you figure you go up to like Neanderthal, and then you have Neanderthal and Homo sapien, or Homo erectus, right next to each other, and it's like where did the one come from? You know what I mean? Because Neanderthal was more or less the last line of the more apish, primitive human, and then all of a sudden you have like this modern man kind of coexisting. So where did this modern man all of a sudden come from? Is it this alien? Huh?
Psilocybin.
What's that?
Magic mushrooms. No, seriously. If you actually look at the compound that is psilocybin, which is considered like magic mushrooms, it's not found on Earth naturally. So technically, psilocybin and some of the derivatives of it that make the magic mushrooms give you hallucinogenic properties are actually alien to Earth. The compound is alien to Earth. If you look, there's a massive, when you're talking about brain size, there is an evolutionary jump in the size of the human brain that randomly happens over a short period of time, which could be a couple 2 million years. So evolutionarily, that's a short period of time. Right. In the grand scheme of things, 2 million years is more than we can really comprehend. But one of the theories is actually psilocybin came on an asteroid or something like, a meteor or comet, whatever, got onto the surface of Earth and started to grow. People started eating this. It caused enlightenment. It caused the brain to actually increase in size because they started to learn. They weren't repeating things they saw. They were questioning certain things to figure out why it did what it did. And it's a far out theory.
No, it makes sense if you think about it, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how if a hallucinogenic would make you think more intellectually rather than just. Well, it scares the shit out of you. like when you hallucinate and like dumpsters are turning into monsters and chasing you down the road. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. But I guess, some people, drop acid to, find enlightenment and stuff like that. So I guess, I guess you're right. I guess it's a thought.
Yeah, it's just a theory that, the compound itself isn't found naturally on Earth, so therefore,
and that's a hard thing for me to fathom too. If it's found on these mushrooms that are earthbound,
or in them,
well,
on them, I don't really know.
Yeah, well, wouldn't that be found on Earth? I mean, these mushrooms are producing it.
It's the compound. What I guess basically what they're saying is this is the only thing on Earth that has this compound of chemicals to create this, effect. Everything else basically has some correlation, some other thing that has that compound. A similar compound to something else.
Right.
This is a completely alien compound compared to the rest of the Earth.
Okay.
And I'm not sure 100% on that. I've heard that theory over the years, and it does kind of put you into a place where when you look at evolutionary science and stuff like that, where the human brain does jump, and the less one lifestyle and more moving towards another type of lifestyle, a change in direction of evolution, where it wasn't about, hunting and stuff like that. They started to develop other skills. They started to learn, how to preserve things, how to do farming and stuff like that.
Right.
So now we were talking about UFOs, and we kind of, had a neat little sidebar there.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that they asked, following up on the UFO stuff, what is the belief in UFOs or possibly ships from other worlds, starships from other worlds? And only about 5% of people strongly agree with that. 21% just agree, 27% are undecided. And then it's pretty much 23.7 and 23.3%. So you're looking at 47% that are disagree or strongly disagree on that number. I think some could be from, different time or different space. I don't necessarily think all UFOs are extraterrestrial. I think a lot of UFO sightings over the years have been man-made, secret government projects,
right?
Misidentification. I mean, we see in cryptozoology and the paranormal and stuff like that, misidentification happens on a daily basis.
Oh yeah.
So you're looking up, you see something, like a story. My wife and I go out for a walk the one night it wasn't quite dark, but it was evening. We walk out the trail, we walk back, and we're getting close to the car, and all of a sudden we see like a shooting star that pops and goes into like 3 different pieces. Like, so it exploded in the upper atmosphere.
Yeah.
Somebody who doesn't think logically, to them, that's a UFO.
Right.
Somebody who's not using the rational side of their brain, that's a UFO. I saw a UFO when I was coming to my car. We looked at it, we're like, wow, that was pretty cool. That was like, because we even listened to hear of something, we heard something crash, like if it was an airplane or a helicopter that blew up or something like that. But we didn't hear a crash. We didn't see the streak continue towards the ground. So we realized, oh, that was a pretty cool shooting star, or whatever you want to consider it.
Yeah.
But an uneducated, non-rational person, that's a UFO.
Mm-hmm. Well, that could have been that could have been a meteorite coming in and splitting as it cooled. It could have been space junk that, what I mean? Like, because there's so much crap orbiting the Earth as far as like satellites and other kind of shit that they put up. Isn't there like a capsule with, it either has a dog or a monkey up there that was sent up back in like the 60s or something?
Mm-hmm.
There's a chimp there's a chimp still orbiting the Earth. I mean, and all that stuff, because of gravity, is getting pulled in, and most of it burns up in the atmosphere, and it just turns to super small particles. But other larger pieces do come through and crash to Earth. So it could have been, that would be my thought would be, all right, it's either a meteorite or just some kind of debris coming back down to Earth, rather than oh my God, it's a UFO.
Yeah. But we're also educated. We're also, people who are thinking rationally.
Mm-hmm.
We're not out there looking for UFOs.
Right.
So, we're not necessarily going to think it's a UFO. We also understand that things do come back. What is it? Inertial decay or whatever. Eventually things that are, in the upper atmosphere and stuff like that, or outside of our upper atmosphere, will eventually start falling into it.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many, there were so many rockets and pieces of rockets and, chimpanzees and stuff like that were shot into space.
Dogs.
Yeah, I mean, dogs. The Russians, shot a whole bunch of stuff into space at different points.
Yeah, who knows what other countries did too.
Yeah. There's even, like, when you think about that, there's even the lost cosmonaut theory in Russia, that they actually sent somebody into space and then couldn't bring them back.
Mm.
And that, there were radio transmissions received at different points, throughout the world, that they could hear this conversation, and they basically couldn't triangulate the second voice wasn't coming from Earth necessarily or something like that. It was from, space. And so there is, there's stuff out there that'll eventually come, crashing back down. So UFOs, not necessarily to me, it's not always something from out of this world. A lot of times I just feel it's stuff that we haven't been told we have yet.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody happens to see it.
No, I agree. Well, look at the stealth bomber. Remember when that was first being designed, and people were seeing it, I guess down in the Southwest, people were seeing this craft flying over the deserts and stuff like that, and flying here, flying there, and what the hell does that look like? They were saying it looked like the Batarang, Batman's, and then here it was the stealth bomber, and then it was introduced as part of the, the military's fleet of aircraft, and but to somebody who didn't know about it before it was public knowledge, it was a UFO.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It wasn't a normal shape that they were used to seeing. Like even the SR-71 Blackbird, before it was, brought to the public's attention, people looked at it and they would see it. It didn't look like a normal everyday airplane, so it had to be a UFO.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, if you look at what the term UFO, it was like we were talking about paranormal and cryptozoology.
Mm-hmm.
The term UFO only means unidentified flying object.
Right.
Which means if you can't identify it, it is technically a UFO.
Right. It doesn't mean it's from outer space.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that somebody who has more knowledge than you can't say to you, did it look like this? Yeah. Oh, well, that's this airplane. Oh, okay, now I know what that airplane looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a UFO is kind of like one of those subjective things, like, oh, it's a UFO, so it's from outer space. No, I just couldn't tell you what it was when it was flying.
Yeah. It's a loose term, yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm not necessarily big on alien UFO. I think, it's an interesting plot device for movies and stuff like that, and TV shows. I don't know if it's necessarily a real super phenomenon that is really happening in the sense of what people claim. I don't even think that necessarily all abductions are alien based.
No, I think a lot of them are psychotic episodes.
Well, I don't. That could be. It's a possibility. But one of the things I was thinking is, we've had all these government programs, that have tested, MK Ultra and stuff like that were testing these different radical, theories, like give people LSD and see if they can become, mindless killers for us. We can train them and they could just be given a command and become the Manchurian candidate and kill somebody. Are some of these abductions just to study people's response and belief in the phenomenon?
That's a good point.
Because
one thing I don't understand is, what's the big secret? You know what I mean? Like, why, if there are aliens, if there are, extraterrestrials, if you will, who gives a shit? You know what I mean? Like, most people can logically sit back and say, like we talked about before, with the vast universe, it wouldn't be far-fetched, it wouldn't be unheard of to have another life, to have other life out there. So if something were to come to visit the planet, why keep it a secret? Well, mass hysteria? Really? Look at how many crazy things happen. I mean, with terrorism and all this other stuff. Like, everybody's, oh my god! And look at just just the stuff that's going on in the world now. So many people, initially like, oh my god, that's horrible. Oh. But then after a while, you're force fed it so much, it's almost kind of like, all right, well, you almost become numb to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think because it would challenge entire
like religions and stuff.
Not just religions, but governments, religion, belief systems.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that if the government would give us disclosure, if they came out tomorrow and said, look, aliens have been coming here since as far as we know.
Mm.
And yes, there have been agreements with aliens about this, and this, and we've signed a pact with this, race of aliens to protect us from another race of aliens. And, by signing this pact, we're giving them, so many humans per year they're allowed to abduct.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that our governments couldn't protect us from something. Because what happens if you go back to like Neanderthal and stuff like that, or to the animal kingdom, mm-hmm. If the old lion gets so old they can't protect the pride, it gets replaced. Well, what happens when it gets replaced? It doesn't just go to a retirement home for old lions. It dies.
Right.
It loses its power. It loses its place. It eventually, gets further and further away from the pack or the pride, and eventually dies.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the reason I think a lot of governments and stuff like that don't want disclosure and all that is the fact that they would lose. They would lose their power. They would lose their position because they would have to admit that they knew this is going on. Not only that, they'd also have to admit that, like, look, we can't protect you if they come here.
Mm-hmm.
They've been coming here and plucking, Travis Walton. His friends, Fire in the Sky, yeah. His friends passed a lie detector test, I believe, 6 different times.
Mm-hmm.
That he was a bright light shone on him and he disappeared up into the air. 6 different lie detector tests. They have fought so hard to make that man sound crazy to basically cover the fact that if it was real and it did happen, they couldn't protect him. They couldn't protect the average American from this, or the average, Earthling from this. But I do believe sometimes it's done by human government organizations. First of all, if we deny it's happening and then it happens and we keep denying it's happening, we can watch the different psychological breakdown, between the person that it's happened to, relationships with that person, relationships of a community and stuff like that. So you can garner a lot of information from doing stuff like that. It's not ethical.
Right.
That's the whole thing. It's not ethical. Well, if we admit to doing it, then we have to apply ethics. If we say, hey, it doesn't happen, aliens don't exist, and it keeps happening, and we just turn a blind eye and keep telling you it's not happening, the doctors don't have to have the ethical code. There's a lot of stuff in history that has been done under the guise of science that was done without, ethics and stuff like that. And they've tried to hide it over the years. They've admitted to some of it. They've said, well, it wasn't as bad as what they say it was. It wasn't really this, but it was that. So they could be just, humans abducting other humans, putting on the little costume and, using different materials and stuff like that and doing tests and checking what fear does to your system at that point.
Yeah. They could be just given some kind of a mind-altering drug to make them hallucinate and think they're being abducted by aliens, to your point where it is more of a government.
Experiment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would subscribe to that before I would say that they were truly aliens.
Yeah.
Because look at some of the disgusting and horrible things that happened throughout human history and are continuing to happen with trafficking and all that crap, and just look at the Holocaust, for crying out loud. Some of the most horrific experiments were done to those poor people, and you know what I mean. It just happened.
Yeah, it happened, and also happened with the fact of government backing. Mm-hmm. And the fact that there is no need for ethics to be involved.
Right.
You could bisect somebody, and not just the Holocaust. People do generally tend to forget that Japan was doing some horrible things in their research. Mm-hmm. Bisecting humans while alive and stuff like that. But they also then turn a blind eye to the fact that American scientists were doing this to fellow Americans at different points. And I think sometimes it's easier to do things. It's easier to get forgiveness after the fact than it is to ask for permission.
Yeah. Sadly.
Yeah. We can run all these scientific tests without your permission and without the general, need for following rules. And then if we get caught later, somebody's going to get in trouble. But by the time you usually find out about these programs, the programs have long since been shut down. Mm-hmm. The people who were the higher ups in them are dead. What you're left with is the low level functionaries.
Yeah.
Who are you going to really prosecute, some phlebotomist for taking a blood sample that they were told to take? Right. When there was some doctor who was orchestrating all this stuff and masterminding all of it. Mm-hmm. So, that's one of those things where I think that gets to be a, ethics and how things are done in that sense. But I really think sometimes that's what it is. I think it's just a way to move around law and requirements. But one of the things that always interests me is these people that keep finding these non-earthbound metals in their system.
Yeah, almost like a tracking device or something like that, and it's not of this earth. Yeah. It's a lot of weird stuff. And again, is that put in there? I mean, is it really? Is it really something that was made here and was just put in there as a diversion? I don't know. I mean, that's going to an awful great extent just to cover up. You know what I mean? But I guess crazier things have happened. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just always interesting that certain, it's like, I think it's like a greater percentage is man-made and earthbound.
Mm-hmm.
There may be a small percentage out there that aren't.
Mm-hmm.
And that small percentage may be, the 100 and some people that end up with this strange metal, alloy or whatever compound, found inside their body magically. No wounds and stuff like that. So you want to talk about belief in Atlantis?
I guess. I was going to say, part of like with the Paranormal America, there are so many unknowns and so many ghostly or cryptozoological phenomenon that happen throughout the United States. And, we were talking about ghosts. We were talking about, the people that believe and don't believe that we got in the extraterrestrial. And to kind of go to the crypto side, kind of segueing out of extraterrestrial into the cryptozoological is, and back to Kecksburg as well, because out near Pittsburgh was one of the hotbeds for the Bigfoot UFO correlation. Because you have that whole other branch of, we talked about Bigfoot before in the sense that it was a physical being that was maybe a relic hominid from some now extinct species. It could, another theory that I've always had is, we were talking before about, maybe people, Homo sapiens, were an offshoot all their own, or maybe that interbreeding of an alien race with primitive man that got us to the point where we are now. Maybe the Bigfoot was the continuation of what was before.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That wasn't bred off by alien or whatever. But like to the point is, I always subscribe to the flesh and blood theory, but there are a lot of other people out there that say, it's a more of a paranormal being where it could, travel through different dimensions. It's interdimensional. It's from, it's basically kind of like a hired thug, if you will, for the extraterrestrials to come to Earth and seek out what needs to be, found by the extraterrestrials. And because there's so many stories about people seeing Bigfoots going back into a spaceship and then taking off into the skies. Maybe like what we talked about before, maybe the extraterrestrials aren't physically strong enough to maintain an extended period of time on Earth due to the gravitational pull. Their bodies are too weak. Maybe they have Bigfoot as, like I said, as kind of the hired thug that's stronger and more capable. Or maybe it is like an experiment that they had made through, harvested DNA or something like that, where it's all right, well, we were able to build this to go out and get what we need or something, and it'll kind of blend in or something. I don't know. There's just so many things out there that are just so Some of them are so ridiculous. Some of them are more, maybe it's feasible. But there's so many things throughout our country that just make you scratch your head and think, if all this is real, it's, one crazy world. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, you got to think back, back in the early 70s, Pennsylvania was one of the top states for UFO and Bigfoot sightings.
Well, that's what I was saying is Kecksburg. That's not Kecksville, right? It's Kecksburg.
Kecksburg.
Yeah. Out near Pittsburgh. Well, actually, the Allegheny National Forest out there was kind of a hotbed throughout that time, like you said, with Bigfoot and UFO sightings. No. And Stan Gordon is kind of a what's the word I'm looking for? Is kind of the primary person who's been following up on those reports throughout, basically their inception to any new reports. He's been tracking them for decades, and he's a wealth of knowledge. He's got a lot of information about it, but there's again, like I was saying before, there's so many reports out in that area of, people started seeing these lights, and then they started seeing these crafts that would come down and land in like these mainly rural farm areas, wooded areas that like there's not a high population of human inhabitants. But they'd see these crafts land, and people would hear a commotion, like their dogs would be barking or whatever, or the cattle would be making noise, and they'd go out, and then as they're approaching this light, they'd see these large, hairy hominoid people or creatures, and they'd fire at them, they'd shoot at them, nothing seemed to affect them, but they would go back to this giant ball of light, spaceship, whatever. It would end up being a craft, and they'd get into it and fly away. There's so many different reports like that out in that area. It's surprising. Yeah.
Well, Stan Gordon's from like the Kecksburg area.
Yeah, he's from out there. Yeah. He grew up there and has been following those stories till now. I heard him speak. Yeah, WKRP in Cincinnati.
WKDK was the radio was the radio station at the time of the Kecksburg incident.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know if it's still the call letters for the station out there out of that area. WKDK.
Cleo Black had posted, maybe they just get abducted like people do. That's a thought. That's a thought. But they seem to be going willingly back to these crafts, whereas most human abductions are not at the will of the person. They're just either beamed up in the light or whatever, or they're just grabbed by the creatures and taken against their will. But these big feet or Bigfoots seem to make their way back to the ships as if it's theirs. So I don't know. Maybe Bigfoot is an alien. I don't know. you don't know until you find one.
Well, but with like humans, when it comes to stuff like that, humans kind of have that like independence, free will, and belief that they are the most dominant thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, think about a dog. If you treat a dog good, you don't beat that dog will come willingly running to you. If you give that dog treats. If Bigfoot is an animal, a flesh and blood animal, well, if these balls of light have always, treated them good, have, communicated with them on their level, have shown them things, have given them, they gave them pizza, whatever it was, that special treat, that every time they see that ball of light, they willingly will go to it because it's going to be a good experience.
It's like the reward mentality.
Yeah. So I mean that it does kind of, it's another wrinkle in the grand scheme of things. Like you have that wrinkle of, well, they could be this, they could be that. Well, they could be willingly going, and humans, have the opposite where we think a different way.
Right.
And our personal beliefs about ourselves. So, that's the thing. Like, Bigfoot could be willingly going because he knows, or she knows, or they know, oh, if I go to this, it's going to give me that yummy purple stuff that I like. It's that reward, for them, giving up something, from Bigfoot giving the little gray guy something that they need. The gray guy gives them the special treat.
Yeah.
Clicks his little clicker, and the Bigfoot runs off happy.
Yeah.
Now,
it's true.
Take a wild guess.
Okay.
What percentage of people that were surveyed in this survey believe that Bigfoot is probable or an absolute? This is shocking to me.
I'm going to go with 65% absolute and 35 probable.
Total between absolute and probable, 16.1% people believe in Bigfoot.
That was wrong.
But to me, that's very shocking. Like, because to me, Bigfoot, I would think more people would be able to believe in Bigfoot than ghost.
I don't know. I think the belief in ghosts, I mean, even with religion and stuff like that, the idea of the afterlife and spirits and all that, that's been with us throughout pretty much human history. Now, granted, there's a lot of Bigfoot reports that go back, that span, back centuries.
Bigfoot's in the Bible. He's in the Bible.
Well, giants, but not necessarily Bigfoot,
Hairy man of the mountain.
Yeah, I guess. But
Harry, gorilla.
I don't think it was as popular a topic as ghosts were. Yeah. I mean, you think of the resurrection of Christ and all that stuff. Like that's more of I would say it'd be more of an accepted idea than the Bigfoot. Yeah. But because I mean, even just with religion alone, like when you die, your spirit, either ascends to heaven or descends to hell. You know what I mean? Like there's something else.
Yeah. I just thought the belief in Bigfoot would be more a higher number. Like that would believe the probability and the absolute. Like absolute, I could say, 3.1% sounds, relatively correct. But like when it gets that probable, only being about 13% of people think it's even probable, that's really low to me. Like, because, it just sounds like such a low end number.
Yeah.
Now, one of the neat things that, especially with this survey, and the study they had, was they actually got into some more, stuff about Bigfoot. Not Bigfoot himself or herself or theirself. Yeah, itself. But like they kind of took some evidence pieces, and they, at one of the BRFO conferences, they basically they took 5 pieces of evidence that are considered the, purported best evidence, on the existence of Bigfoot, possible existence. And they asked the people, what percent, how many of these pieces of evidence do you know? 45% of them knew of all 5 pieces. Now, that's not saying they believed all 5 pieces were true evidence, but they had seen, heard, looked at, investigated, read about all 5. 29% were in that 3 to 4 pieces of that evidence they had heard, read, had some information about.
Right.
20% knew 1 or 2 pieces, and that's relatively maybe some of your newer people in that field. 6% knew none of the 5 pieces. Now, one of those 5 pieces was the Patterson-Gimlin film. Even if you don't know Bigfoot, you kind of have an idea what the Patterson-Gimlin. You may not know it by the name, but if they said, this photo right here, people would be like, I've seen that before. Now, one of the things we had talked about when we talked about Bigfoot was the Patterson-Gimlin film. At the 2000 BFRO conference, 80% of the people in attendance believed that the Patterson-Gimlin film constituted a somewhat or very credible piece of evidence.
Okay.
So 80% of the people felt that it was at least somewhat credible or very credible. So that's basically saying a lot more people believe in it as actual evidence than don't. That's only leaving you about 20% of people that are neither undecided or negative, reactive. So Bigfooters are generally better educated, better income, better looking. I threw that last one.
I was going to say, where are you going with this?
But no, they actually looked at Bigfoot, research. They did it at this conference, and they looked at overall conference attendance and stuff like that. Of course, 67% were male.
Right.
Average, at least a 4-year college degree, $50,000 to $100,000 a year incomes. 63% were married. 43% were Protestant, and attended church several times a year. That of course, is being, basically Baylor's a religious university, so of course they throw that in there.
Right.
Now of people that considered themselves Bigfoot hunters, 88% were male. Of course,